Digital noise drowns souls seeking truth. But the most profound blueprints for navigating human life, culture, and leadership weren't written by modern influencers or shifting societal trends. They were recorded thousands of years ago in the pages of the Holy Bible. Welcome to Scroll to Soul. We don't just read the text. We decode the real-world execution strategy for the modern era. If you are ready to stop being a passive observer and start building a life rooted in deep wisdom and intentional action, you are in the right place. You are now among the practitioners. Let's unlock today's blueprint. When we look at the concept of wealth in modern society, we are often bombarded with formulas for quick riches, temporary financial gains, and sudden market success. People chase volatile trends, speculative assets, and short-term victories that vanish as quickly as they appear. However, true prosperity is not measured by a temporary spike in your bank account. True prosperity is defined by sustainability, resilience, and the capacity to accumulate assets that pass successfully from one generation to the next. Long before the existence of modern banking systems, estate planning, or corporate asset management, a foundational blueprint for generational wealth was established and executed with absolute perfection. This permanent framework is found in the 13th chapter of the book of Genesis, detailing the strategic movements and decisions of the patriarch Abraham. To understand the depth of the Abrahamic wealth model, you must look past the ancient setting and focus entirely on the timeless operational principles. Abraham, who was known as Abram at this stage of his journey, had just emerged from a period of severe economic testing in Egypt. As he returned to the region of the Negev, the text introduces us to his financial reality with a powerful statement. Genesis chapter 13, verse 2 declares that Abram had become extremely wealthy in livestock and in silver and gold. This specific sentence reveals the triple asset portfolio that formed the core of his financial strength. It is the gold standard model for structured wealth accumulation. Look closely at the components of this portfolio. First, he possessed livestock. In the ancient world, livestock represented active cash flow and operational assets. Cattle, sheep, and camels multiplied continuously through natural reproduction, providing daily food, materials for trade, and active commercial leverage. Livestock required continuous management, specialized labor, and operational infrastructure, but it served as the primary engine for economic growth. Second, he possessed silver and gold. These precious metals represented hard, liquid reserves. Unlike livestock, silver and gold did not require feeding, did not catch diseases, and did not die during a drought. They served as a stable store of value, providing absolute security, instant purchasing power, and protection against local economic failure or political instability. Most modern professionals and business owners make a critical mistake by choosing only one side of this financial equation. Some focus entirely on active cash flow, putting all their energy into a high-paying job or a fast-growing business, while completely failing to convert those active earnings into hard, permanent reserves. When an operational crisis hits or the market shifts, their cash flow dries up, and because they have no hard reserves, their entire structure collapses. Conversely, others focus solely on hoarding stagnant cash in low-yield accounts, watching their purchasing power slowly decay due to inflation because they lack active cash-flowing engines that multiply over time. The Abrahamic foundation requires you to institutionalize a deliberate balance. You must run active operations that generate consistent cash flow, and you must systematically convert a portion of those earnings into hard, secure, and liquid reserve assets that protect your baseline stability. The narrative moves forward to expose the primary operational crisis that occurs when your wealth begins to scale significantly. The text notes that Lot, Abram's nephew who traveled with him, also possessed extensive flocks, herds, and tents. Because both individuals were scaling their operations simultaneously, they ran directly into an infrastructure bottleneck. Verse 6 states that the land could not support them while they stayed together because their possessions were so great that they were not able to remain in the same place. As a direct result of this capacity limit, serious internal friction began to develop. The herdsmen of Abram and the herdsmen of Lot began to argue over access to crucial resources like grazing fields and water wells. This is a critical moment that every growing organization, business partnership, and successful family must eventually face. Success naturally introduces scale, and scale inevitably introduces operational friction. When your operations expand, your existing infrastructure, systems, and relationships will be tested to their absolute limits. A novice leader or a sentimental manager will try to force a broken partnership to stay together out of habit, fear, or tradition, ignoring the warning signs of internal conflict. This refusal to adapt always leads to the destruction of capital, the erosion of team morale, and the ultimate failure of the enterprise. A true practitioner recognizes that when the capacity of the current environment is reached, structural adjustments are mandatory to preserve capital and maintain momentum. Abram handled this operational crisis with elite leadership and absolute strategic clarity. He did not let emotional attachment or pride cloud his judgment. Nor did he allow the internal arguments to escalate into a destructive conflict that would expose both families to external enemies. Abram approached Lot and proposed a clean, organized separation. He stated that there should be no quarreling between them or between their herdsmen, since they were close relatives. He then gave Lot the first choice of the entire surrounding territory, stating that if Lot went to the left, Abram would go to the right, and if Lot went to the right, Abram would go to the left. This move appears completely counterintuitive to the modern corporate mindset, which preaches aggressive dominance, taking every immediate advantage and outmaneuvering your partner at all costs. But Abram operated from an absolute abundance mindset, rooted in a higher covenant. He understood a profound truth that every legacy builder must master. His personal wealth was not dependent on a single piece of premium real estate or a specific geographic advantage. His wealth was a direct product of his internal wisdom, his operational discipline, and his alignment with divine principles. Abram knew that wherever he went, his systems would prosper. Therefore, he willingly surrendered the immediate right of first choice to preserve long-term peace, eliminate operational friction, and safeguard his core capital. De-escalating conflict to protect your long-term focus is a hallmark of superior strategic thinking. Lot looked out across the horizon and fell directly into the optic trap. The text records that Lot lifted his eyes and saw that the whole plain of the Jordan toward Zoar was well watered, resembling the fertile garden of the Creator and the high-output economy of Egypt. Based entirely on this immediate visual appearance and the promise of easy cash flow, Lot chose the entire plain of the Jordan for himself and set out toward the east. He made a massive, life-altering decision based on superficial data and short-term trends. He saw the green fields and assumed it was the premier investment opportunity. However, the narrative introduces a severe hidden risk factor that Lot completely ignored. The text notes that the men of Sodom were wicked and were sinning greatly against the Creator. Lot prioritized immediate operational convenience and prime real estate, while completely ignoring the toxic cultural, moral, and political risk of the environment he was entering. Within a few short years, this short-sighted decision would cost him his freedom, his family, and his entire net worth during a major regional war. Modern practitioners must learn from Lot's failure. You must never choose an investment, a corporate position, a business partnership, or a geographic location based solely on immediate visual prosperity or high short-term returns. If the underlying environment is structurally unstable, ethically compromised, or socially toxic, your wealth is in constant danger. True asset accumulation requires you to evaluate the hidden risk factors, the long-term regulatory environment, and the cultural stability of where you deploy your capital. The moment Lot separated and walked away toward Sodom, a profound shift occurred in Abram's financial reality. The Creator spoke to Abram, commanding him to lift up his eyes from where he was standing and look to the north, south, east, and west. Abram was given a massive sovereign mandate. All the land that you see I will give to you and your offspring forever, and I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth. This is the exact moment where transient riches transformed into permanent, generational real estate. Livestock can die in a plague, silver can be spent on daily expenses, and gold can be seized by a corrupt government. Movable wealth is excellent for daily cash flow and short-term liquidity, but it cannot form the unshakable bedrock of a multi-generational legacy. To build an inheritance that outlives your life, you must transition your active earnings into permanent foundational territory. Land is the ultimate multi-generational asset because it provides physical space, long-term stability, and a permanent anchor for future generations. Abram understood this directive perfectly. He moved his tents and went to live near the great trees of Mamre at Hebron, where he built an altar. He did not just look at the vision. He physically occupied the territory and established his presence. Let us summarize the core pillars of the Abrahamic wealth strategy so you can apply them directly to your life. First, you must construct a balanced portfolio combining active cash-flowing operations with hard liquid reserves. Second, You must recognize when operational success creates infrastructure bottlenecks and be willing to restructure partnerships to preserve peace. Third, you must operate from an abundance mindset, choosing de-escalation over destructive conflicts. Fourth, you must avoid the optic trap of choosing opportunities based on immediate appearances while ignoring environmental risks. Finally, you must actively transition your liquid earnings into permanent foundational assets that secure your generational legacy. Knowledge without application is just intellectual entertainment. A life of true impact is built entirely through execution. And that brings us to today's practitioner challenge. Look at your own path, your decisions, and your interactions this week. Identify the single biggest area where passive habits are holding you back, and actively apply the exact scriptural framework we unpacked today. Drop a comment below with the word applied once you've put it into action. Let the community know you are executing, not just listening. We are the practitioners. If this blueprint brought high-value perspective to your life, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this with someone building a lasting legacy. In our next video, we are diving into another foundational principle. Until then, keep executing.